We are good to go. All right, what's going
Sounds
on,
good.
everybody? This is corners, and I'm really excited to talk about this. Canada, if you wanted to take it away.
Sure. Yeah, so this is part of our, at this point, weekly series of film study, where we're looking at all 22 for different positions. And specifically, obviously, this has a Patriots focus, right? This is why we started off with wide receiver and tackles and now corners. Um, if any of you have looked at any Patriots mock draft, it almost assuredly has featured one of these positions in the first round.
Hmm.
So that's why we're starting with these three. Um, so that's what we're doing here today. We're going to be looking at corners. So last week, O-line play, that was going to be a lot of examining O-line technique and kind of what to look for. I think corners is going to be a little more like receivers today. We'll probably look at some more guys compared to what we did on the O-line. There's more corner prospects overall. This is a fantastic corner class, so there's plenty of really high level guys to look at. Um, if you take a look at our board there, you'll see names, that you probably recognize as guys who regularly get mocked in the first or second round, pretty far down.
Yep.
Um, and it's not that this guy is terrible. It's
Yep.
just that this is how good this class is, right? We
hmm
love Eli Ricks as an example. If you
Eli
watch Eli
Ricks is my
Ricks,
guy.
he has fantastic film. Now he had some limited snaps at Bama. He didn't play to start the year, which is interesting, but on the field, he's clearly their best. He's probably their best secondary player. Incredible corner, super sticky, all these kinds of things, right? And you're like, got the length. It's like, okay, so how is he not higher than 8, right? How is a guy that we adore, we have almost no complaints about, how is he only 8?
Hmm.
Because
It's just that good a
the,
class.
that's how good the 7 guys are in front
hmm
of him, right?
And
However
he
good
didn't do
Eli Ricks
combine
is,
testing.
and he didn't do combine testing. That doesn't help him either. But like, that just goes to tell you this is how good this class is. Cam Smith, Darius Rush. If a team took either of those guys in round 1, I could understand why they did it, and I
hmm
would be, like, okay with it. I would say, "Wow, that's a great that's a good pick for them." And we have them at 9 and 10. Um,
Hmm.
hmm
that's how
That's
good this
still
class
darn
is.
high.
That's how good this class is. So, um, there's a lot of super fun prospects. We're gonna be looking at a bunch of them today. Hopefully everyone has fun. As usual, do not be afraid to ask questions in the chat. Uh,
Hmm.
I will be very much willing to, let folks ask questions. And if I see a
hmm
question get asked a lot, I'll try to bring it up. And really, any question, I will try to bring it up to these guys up here. The main two who will be going over a lot of the um, kind of film stuff will be Explosion and our good friend Mike Vrabelstan, who we refer to as Blind Eye. That's what we normally know him as. Um, so those are the main two guys who will be doing a lot of the film. But if I see questions, I will be perfectly happy to let you or let folks ask questions. I will relay them. If you have a longer question, also, you can say that and just say, "Hey, I have a longer question. Can I just come up and say it?" That's totally fine too, just because
hmm
sometimes we understand you don't want to spend like 5 minutes typing out a giant paragraph when you could have spent 20 seconds talking through it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
And I have
don't
one of
be
my
afraid to do
sources
that.
available too, on the other end, who's very in the league. He knows what's going on between the teams, especially up to coming to the draft. So if you have a question that you want me to relay to him or ask him, I'm always open to those. So just feel free to ask.
Yep,
Hmm.
we do have Tom here today. Tom is, uh, as always, he is a valuable resource. Uh, I would like to ask folks to keep in mind, do not ask Tom uh, like really weird. Like let's not spam Tom with like annoying questions. Like I don't like let's not be like, oh, would the Ravens accept 3 firsts? How about a first and a second for Lamar? Like, I don't really. We don't. It's
Don't
not
be
relevant to what
ridiculous. I
we're
don't
talking
want to
about.
waste my sources' time.
Yeah.
Correct. Let's not be ridiculous. Um, but if you have questions maybe about how teams see certain corners, right? Hey, like I really like this guy. How is he viewed? That's probably a better type of question to ask Tom
Especially
anyway,
for today.
especially for today. So um, this is should be a lot of fun. We have great resources up here. Uh, of course, I'm always watching chat. Um, Mia, to answer your question, so um, when you open the channel, right, the stage channel, there is a little chat option, right, where it's specifically a chat for the channel
It's a
tier. So I'm
VC
gonna,
chat,
yeah,
essentially.
It's a special chat just for the stage.
yep.
So you just click on that chat bubble. It should pop up on the right side.
And Bailey, I just pinged you in it. So if you see that ping, you should be able to, then that should show you the channel. That's where I'm going to be looking for questions. Um, so yeah, let's keep things generally in there. All right, cool. You see it, fantastic. All right, let's get this show on the road. I did not. I was out getting food. I totally don't know actually what corners we're looking at, so I will let Explosion talk about that.
So the corners we're going over tonight are all guys that are going to be either round one or round two prospects. I preferably like to choose 2 round 1 guys and 2 round 2 guys to, or possible round 3 guys to cover, because these are positions of need. These are positions we're going to be considering round 1 and round 2, and you want to be able to showcase the top prospects, right? So the two round 1 guys we're going to be going over today are Joey Porter, who is the corner out of Penn State, and Deonte Banks, who is the Maryland corner. And the reason I chose these two and not maybe a Devon Witherspoon or a Christian Gonzalez is, from everything that I've heard, Christian Gonzalez and Devon Witherspoon will be gone pretty much well before the Patriots select them, unless something unprecedented like a Laramie Tunsil type situation happens. I do not
My
expect
source
them to
can
fall
also
out the top 10.
confirm that.
Yeah.
My source tells me that Witherspoon, Joey Porter, and Emmanuel Forbes are all likely going in the first round.
Yeah.
That's how it seems to teams in the league.
And Emmanuel Forbes on his merits.
I've been telling y'all that Forbes was gonna go first round for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Emmanuel Forbes,
I love him.
we're not going to be talking about him tonight. He is the corner out of Mississippi State. He is a really awesome talent. People knock him. His only real knock is that he's 166 pounds, right? But at corner, he's still very physical in his own right, but he has elite speed. He has very loose hips. He's sticky in coverage. He has great hands to intercept the ball. All the traits you're looking for in an outside corner, you're going to find in Emmanuel Forbes. And hell, we saw with Devontae Smith that if you put these guys who have weight concerns in a NFL training room, they will get that size on. They'll pack on the pounds. And honestly, packing on the pounds, maybe 10 pounds, is not going to affect him to the point where he's not going to be able to have elite recovery speed or elite ability to flip those hips quickly.
And one thing to note about Forbes as well, his weight concerns I think are very much overblown simply because he definitely has room on his frame to add some good weight and not really affect his play, right? He's not the type of guy where it's like, oh, he's got a really thin, wiry frame. To make an NBA reference, like Chet Holmgren was a guy who was like tall and had a really thin frame, right? There wasn't a lot of room for him to like add a lot. And that was where weight concerns came for him. Emmanuel Forbes doesn't have that problem. He has a frame where he has a lot of room to grow.
Forbes can easily get to 180, and actually, he was not playing at 166 during the season. He was in the 170s during the season. Apparently, or from what I understand, during training and stuff, he lost weight. Which sometimes that happens. I don't know if he had anything happen like Myjai Sanders last year, where Myjai got really bad sick between like the Senior Bowl and the Combine, which is why he came in so light at the Combine. But I mean, weight fluctuations happen, but I'm not. I mean, Forbes held up in the SEC against elite physical wide receivers. I mean, we're talking like he was going man to man against Jonathan Mingo, who's 6'2", 220. He was manning up Bama's receivers from the past 3 years. I mean, LSU's receivers, and heck, Ole Miss. He also went up against Malik Heath. He's a big receiver. Arkansas have had Traylon Burks and Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers. Like, I mean, he's played comp. But anyway,
so if someone tries to tell you, oh, Forbes is too small to play in the league, nope, just isn't. The weight concerns are way overblown. And that's why we have him, by the way, at 5.
Yes.
We think he's fantastic.
Yeah. And I would argue, if I was just going based off of tape and tape alone, he's up there. I would say he's got top 3 tape of any corner I've watched in this draft. Like his best, like man-to-man tape, like stickiest in man-to-man. I'd argue like whether it's press man, where he's not necessarily as physical at the line, but he sticks with guys, or off man, he's got the best tape in the draft. He's as good as anybody.
Yes.
And the league sees that. He is definitely going in the first round. It's been told to me multiple times that Forbes is seen by teams as a first round prospect.
And rightfully so. And so tonight let's start off by watching Joey Porter Jr. Now this is kind of a guy that I came into watching his film a little skeptical on. I'd been told by my sources that a lot of teams see him as a guy who will probably very likely be a first round pick. Almost definitely will be a first round pick. The only issues is that he doesn't quite have the tools of a Deonte Banks. He doesn't quite have the tools of a Devon Witherspoon or a Christian Gonzalez, where Christian Gonzalez has super high upside. And when I watched his film, his ability to be sticky in man coverage, which is in press man, which is something that Bill Belichick would absolutely love. The fact that he is 21 right now, so he has room to grow, and he looks like a pro ready corner already.
Frothing at the mouth over that.
And honestly, he has really underratedly great ball skills and a great ability to break up passes. Now I will say they're especially so it's going to be a lot of Purdue film with him, because I think Purdue was one of his best games in terms of, if you want to see how he displays his tools, that Purdue game is the game to watch. So we're going to start off here with this clip right here. This is so this clip is going to display that, first of all, so he's going to be, I believe, at the bottom of the screen here. He's number 3.
And he's going up against Charlie Jones.
Yes, Charlie Jones, who's one of the best receivers in this draft, just from a pure talent perspective. Just his ability to be a boundary guy who has elite speed and a great ability to create separation, and just super hyper physical. Porter did a great job in this game of matching that energy and really battling him back. It's just really good stuff, and you'll see here. So obviously, press man, you're going to keep those shoulders over your hips, the hips over feet, I should say. Which is basically like a concept where you want to be able to have that leverage as your front leverage to be able to battle him in press man. But it also keeps you where you have your center of gravity forward in front of you while you're in your back pedal, so that when you hit that T-step, which is a technique where basically you put your back foot sideways to be able to break out of your back pedal quickly, it keeps all of that weight forward so that you don't have to transfer that weight from leaning backwards or leaning straight up to leaning forward. You are already leaning forward. That's why you see so many corners in this kind of hunched over stance. It's called keeping your hips over your toes. So in this press man, he's going to be keeping his hips over his toes. He transitions quickly from that back pedal into a bail. That's kind of showcasing those super loose hips. And then an ability to wrap up and tackle your receiver. Just stay super sticky in press man, and just understand the corner position is an incredibly difficult position to play. And the reason why is, first of all, it is a totally different mentality. You have to, you'll see a lot of corners in the leagues. I think a great example is Jalen Ramsey, where they have this I am better than you in every way kind of mentality. And the reason you need to have that is because you have to have that energy of, oh shit, I just let up a 40-yard pass, and now I have to go back on the field and face the same receiver who just did that to me.
Exactly.
It's a mentality that's incredibly hard to keep up with, and it's why corners get paid so much in the league. But you also have to understand that just because you gave up a target or just because you gave up a reception doesn't mean that you lost the rep, right?
Mhm.
There's so many circumstances where it's okay to give a receiver a reception, or you're playing your technique right. It's just it was a perfect ball, or the receiver was able to create that extra inch of separation, and it's those really small marginal details that are
Mhm.
going to matter a ton in the league.
Mhm.
But I mean, here he just has a great ability to be super sticky in coverage. He's all over this guy from the first second to the last, and then his ability to wrap up and tackle, it's really good stuff. On this play, he reads so basically he's going to be playing at the top here, and he's going to have a vertical concept coming towards him, and then a flat concept from that slot receiver coming underneath. And you have to understand, like, there are also roles, and you have to have rules for how you're playing these things. Um, and so what he's doing is he's reading quarterback's eyes. You'll see his helmet is facing towards the quarterback the entire time. Uh, and so his rules are you have your overhang safety help here, right here. And this guy is going to be taking whatever comes vertically, and you're going to be covering whatever's coming into the flat. This is what we call trap coverage. And trap coverage is something that you see a lot in the league, where you have three components to trap coverage: an outside corner who's going to be playing whatever comes into the flat. You're going to be having a linebacker or sometimes a nickel defender who is going to be taking whatever comes in. And then you have what's called a roof player, which is usually almost always a safety, who takes whatever comes vertically. And it's a way to be able to lock up whatever's coming in breaking, out breaking vertical. The only thing that really beats trap coverage is like hitch and curl routes or sit down routes. Um, it's a man concept. It's both man concept and zone concept at the same time. So it's a really interesting defensive coverage setup. And so what he's going to do is he's going to be tracking this vertical a little bit. The moment he sees that flat, boom, I'm getting up in that. And yes, the receiver does catch the ball, but it doesn't matter the result when you've played the coverage perfectly. That's what teams are looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, his ability to jump this route, he was right in there. And I mean, if he had just managed to that's an interception right there. And when you get to the NFL, you're gonna be able to make that play. Like they're gonna drill that into you that you gotta have better hands. And I mean, it's perfectly played defense because he knows he has his roof player. He knows he has a responsibility to cover the underneath, and he does it both perfectly. All while reading the quarterback's eyes. Like he's not even reading what's coming in front of him. He's reading what the quarterback's looking at.
Yeah, his instinct, like his technique's great. His instincts show up on this play. It's just the result. He doesn't get the desired result, but the process is perfect.
Yes.
And
yes.
process is what wins out in the long run. Process is what wins you championships.
Yes.
Process gets results.
This one is
I love cliches.
This one is a back shoulder, and he ends up getting flagged for it. But honestly, like he should not have been flagged. Like he plays the ball, not the man, and he does it pretty perfectly. I believe he's at the top here. So obviously going back shoulder. I mean, he plays the ball perfectly, and honestly, a lot of corners cannot play back shoulder balls because they're so worried about getting beat over the top that they would rather prioritize what's in front of them, even though nothing is in front of them, rather than trying to just play the man as he is and trying to stop any possible angles that the quarterback's trying to throw. And in this play, quarterback throws back shoulder, he plays it perfectly and gets flagged for it. I mean, it's just super sticky coverage. It's just fantastic from the first second of this rep to the last. Like, I mean, there's nothing else you can really say. Just beautiful loose hips, immediately bail, get that hand right in there. It's a perfect play. So, and then we move on to this play. which is I have listed as pass breakup on slant route. And this is actually something that we had talked about a little earlier today, not to drag anybody into the dirt, but there was somebody who had said in regards to Keely Ringo that slant routes and crosser routes are almost impossible to cover.
No, said they are impossible to cover.
Oh yeah, he said they are impossible to cover. If that was the case, slant routes and crosser routes would be the bane of the NFL, and no corner would ever like be able to
Stop
play in the
anyone.
league. Yeah.
Yeah, this ain't Madden, bro.
Yep. And so let me show you here. He's at the bottom of the screen here, and just, I mean, again, he's playing he's at the top of the screen, I should say, top of the screen playing the boundary, and so that slant comes in. Boom, get that hand in there. And what he does a great job of is undercutting the route, which means getting in front of the receiver, which actually is very difficult to do because everything that you're taught as a corner is to never allow the receiver to get upfield leverage on you. And so on this play, I mean, he takes a serious risk. And honestly, a lot of corners, when they're trying to jump these kinds of routes, do take significant risk. I'll show you a couple of snaps later tonight of Eli Ricks doing exactly that. And actually on several of those clips, just watching through, or not the clips that we have, but on several of the things that I've seen, he actually does get beat because, you know, he takes that risk. But he does a great job of like undercutting the route, getting his hand up in there, and breaking up the pass. And you want to be able to see that from your receivers, especially in this league where, or you want to see that from your corners, especially in this league where, you know, those short yardage situations on like third and short can really mean the difference between a win and a loss.
Yep.
So we move on to the next one. So this is his ability to play the boundary and to leverage the boundary. Now, now that sounds pretty self-explanatory, but what exactly does that mean? So as an outside corner, when you are dealing with a vertical concept, whether that be a fade route or just a straight up go route, you want to be able to do something called leveraging the sideline, which basically is this idea that the sideline is kind of perceived by boundary corners as an extra defender. Because if you can force that receiver out into the boundary, he's now an ineligible receiver. And the only way he reestablishes himself is if he gets both feet back in bounds. Now, in the NFL, if you're out, you're out. I don't think you can reestablish yourself in the NFL because otherwise it's an ineligible receiver. Or illegal touching, I believe, is the official term. But his ability to leverage the sideline as an extra defender and force him and be physical to force him out into that boundary is something that teams are going to want to covet. Because they want to see their outside corners be physical, not only at the line of scrimmage, but in the middle of their route. Now, obviously, you don't want to be too physical, otherwise you're giving up a pass interference. But, so he's on the top, leverage the sideline, force him out of bounds. And now, even though he didn't get targeted there, he had made the receiver ineligible and now not an available target to throw to. It's just really good fundamentals. Being patient, like right here, when you're seeing him with his hips in the front, like facing towards the receiver, he's not turning those hips to the side and allowing the back door to be open for that receiver to exploit him and force him to go into a speed turn. He's keeping his hips square to the receiver and allowing the receiver to tell him where he is going. Because if you tell the receiver, hey, my hips are this way, you're facing to the hips are facing to the right, he's going to take your left and he's going to go vertical on you. And then you're going to have to do a whole speed turn to try and even get on the same leverage as him. And to be able to try and get up to speed with him. Meanwhile, he's 15 yards downfield and he's catching the ball on a touchdown and you're getting your ass kicked by your secondaries coordinator. So he's really good about being patient and about leveraging the sideline and being a physical corner. On this clip, he's at the bottom. And just his ability to, again, just be physical and sticky on routes this is a crossing. This is a crosser's route. So the receiver's going to try and play this. A lot of receivers want to play the crosser route, like they want to run an immediate 45, which means turning sideways off the line of scrimmage and running basically diagonal to the field. And then they're going to want to cut that straight so that the corner is basically flat-footed because he's going to have to go back into his back pedal. And then you're going to basically cut it directly in a 90-degree angle and basically fire directly towards the sideline. A lot of receivers are taught to do this, and this is a good receiver. This is Fleming from Ohio State.
Highly recruited.
Highly recruited. And just look at how sticky and physical he is from the beginning of this play at the line of scrimmage, where he has hands on the entire time. And I mean, that's really good coverage. And again, the reason why he isn't sticky off of this cut here is, first of all, you do lose a little bit of leverage when the receiver cuts as hard as Fleming does here. But then secondly, he's actually playing this technique correctly because he knows he has underneath help. Like, you have all of this stuff in here with you, where you can play the high shoulder and actually go back in your technique where you don't want that receiver to gain upfield leverage on you.
Yeah.
So he's actually playing that technique correctly.
And also, by this point, he's really good about keeping his eyes on the receiver, but also peeking at the quarterback without losing his leverage and losing track of where he is. And he was aware that that ball was out by the time he made that break.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to have corners that have two minds, right? So a mind of being able to keep aware of what's going on in front of you and what your feeling is behind you, while also keeping eyes on the quarterback and recognizing that the quarterback is looking in my direction. I should be very physical. Or the quarterback isn't looking in my direction. I can continue to be physical, but not have to worry about him throwing at me.
Basically.
Corner.
Here's a fun set.
Yeah, this one's a fun one. So this is actually this is an empty set. This is a bunch. So you'd say empty bunch. And I mean, your priorities change when it goes from a spread on a 3-by side to when it's a bunch, because you don't know where the guys are all going. Like, you know that the interior guy, you know that the most inside guy, aka the slot, isn't going to be flying out on you, most likely. But you know that one of these two concepts, either the middle guy or the outside guy, which we call either the 2 or the 1, reading 2 to 1, could go vertical on you at any time. And you have to be able to be cerebral and process both of those guys at the same time, which is hard to do, especially in a setting where these guys could go vertical on you and it's a 1/10 of a second and you have only that amount of time to react. Now on this play, this is a really great play because he is able to crash through this screen and break it up. This is what we call a swing screen, right? And he's able to fire through this quickly. And you want to be able to see that from your corners. And actually, you see a lot of that with Devon Witherspoon, the corner out of Illinois.
Absolutely.
He's an incredible screen game crasher.
He's one of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And you want to be able to see corners who recognize that in an instant. Look at how quickly it takes him to recognize this is a screen. I mean, that receiver is barely out of his break as doing his swing. And he's in there tackling a really good receiver. This is Egbuka from Ohio State. He's going to be a top guy in next year's draft. And I mean, he is in there tackling the guy and wrapping up and being physical. You want to see your corners be able to actually wrap up the ball carrier and bring him to the ground. And he does that perfectly. Which
makes sense because his dad was a Pro Bowl and I think maybe one-time All-Pro outside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, of course, he taught his son how to tackle. Like, you want to talk about a guy who plays like his size. That's one of the things I like about Porter. There's a lot of guys who are 6'2", who, like, say, Kelly Ringo, who have no physicality to them, who can't tackle, which is interesting for a Georgia corner.
Yeah.
But Porter, like, and this is a really good example that flying down, physical, not afraid of contact, and he just splits the blockers so well. Like, he knows that inside or the top guy in the bunch is going to have to go for the slot corner. And so he leverages like he's going to play outside and then just jams his foot in the ground and burst to the inside of the outside blocker.
And actually, this is Fleming right here. You can see how upset he is because he knows he got his ass kicked on that rep. Like, you do not want to see you don't want to see your receiver just as pissed as he is. I mean, throwing his hands at his hips like, God damn it, I didn't get him. It's just really good fundamental football, and you're frustrating your opponent. So,
and to add some notes on those Ohio State receivers there, those guys are no joke. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. gets most of the hype out of that wide receiver room, and rightfully so. Those other guys are also fantastic football players.
Extremely highly recruited. We're
Julian
talking 5.
Was the number 1 wide receiver in his class in 2020, I believe, in terms of recruits. He's a 5-star prospect.
Yep.
Emeka Egbuka in 2021 was another 5-star prospect, right? Right. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going top 10 of the first round. Emeka Egbuka might go top 20. Like, he's also amazing. These guys are all fantastic football players. They are, like, Ohio State honestly probably has a better receiver room than a large chunk of NFL teams.
Several NFL teams, yeah.
Like, so when Porter's beating
crazy.
these guys, he's beating NFL talent. High level NFL talent. This is like this isn't him playing some, they have Marvin Harrison and some duds. It's they have Marvin Harrison and a bunch of NFL starters.
Yeah, and by the way, JSN is not playing in this game. He was injured basically the entire season. That's why we're not commenting on JSN for this specific game.
Yep. And by the way, for Ohio State's recruiting class this year, they got the number 1 or number 2 receiver, depending on what recruiting service you got, 5-star. And then Cornell Tate, which depending on what recruiting service you look at, was a 4 or 5-star. Although he might have dropped to just 4 stars across the board for everyone. But a lot of people were after Tate. Like, there was a really big battle between Ohio State and Tennessee for him. So, I mean, they just keep bringing him in.
The last clip we have here, I actually don't have a title on it. So I believe this is the play where he
gets the better of Harrison.
Yes. So Harrison is at the bottom here, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Porter's covering him. This actually is a great example of him that even if he isn't in press coverage, he's still very sticky as a man corner. And so Harrison's going to be running like a fade route. And again, what he does a great job, we were talking a little bit earlier about it, is leveraging the sideline, leveraging it as an extra defender, and then squeezing him out. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the side, is with his coaches right now, on this play. He completely knocked him out here. And even if he's not receiving the ball, he's still able to. He's still playing this perfectly, never allowing even for a second for an elite receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. to get the better of him.
And elite corners, it's like what people in the public especially expect of an elite corner is the ability to consistently erase, and I mean teams too, consistently erase their matchup from a play. And we just saw and he used Harrison's athleticism to a degree against him because Porter's a really athletic guy. Harrison's fires out toward or on that fade route and starts to break towards the sideline, and Porter just seals off over the top, but also in a way that Harrison can't really cut back underneath him or do anything. He's just corralled out of bounds without too much contact. I mean, it's really great technique by Porter.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Joey Porter Jr. Again, he's only 21 years old. He's going to get better. He's gonna get into an NFL training room, and he's gonna he's gonna be even more physical at the next level.
And he's a high character kid who already has a professional approach to the game, and has for years. Coachable. His father was a former NFL player, like I mentioned earlier. Also, Joey Porter's been a coach for years too. So he's a player and coach's son. Yep. He's checking all those cliche boxes. He's definitely going to be the first man, last man out. He's going to have that on everybody's scouting report.
Yeah. The next player we're going to be looking at is Deonte Banks. Now, here's what's interesting about Banks. Banks is not a traditional Belichick corner. But what he is and the reason why I say that is because he played in very much a zone system. But he has a lot of tools that can suggest that he will be a really good man corner, specifically a boundary man corner, which is honestly all the guys we're showing you are guys who are going to play the boundary. The reason why
Mhm.
corner is a concern for the Patriots isn't because of the ability or lack of names within the corner room. The issue has to do with the fact that we don't have a guy who has the size and the strides and the length to play outside against receivers like Stephon Diggs, who have been able to who've been able to take advantage of guys like Jonathan Jones on the boundary and basically like moss him or be able to out
Mhm.
leverage him as a boundary guy because Jonathan Jones is an innately slot corner.
Mhm.
So, uh,
We have a question here coming in from Bailey. Question is, I guess just a quick question. How do you work out positional value here? I unfortunately missed the wide receiver discussion of this, but obviously Porter is a very impressive prospect at corner, especially if he is there at 14. But where does perceived need come in, and how does cornerback typically in a front office stack up versus wide receiver in terms of importance?
uh, I guess the best way to answer this is that so there's like from a national media perspective, there is a perceived value of these players, right? So
Mhm.
that like for example, the perceived value of the running back position. The running back position is perceived as a position where it is so saturated with talent that it's not worth taking a running back in the first round because not only do you not need to pay these guys after their first contract, which makes their first round value innately not good because you are hopefully as a first round pick supposed to be a franchise guy, but then also you have so many guys who can do exactly what, or from a national media perspective again, can do what these running backs are going to be able to do in the NFL because there's just so many just floating in free agency.
Mhm.
Um, Front offices have their own processes for evaluating talent, which is why, per some of my sources, they're telling me that Bijan is going to be a guy who is going to be a top 15 guy, a guy who's going to
Yep.
be selected almost 100% by the Eagles. It's really a choice between Nolan Smith and Bijan Robinson. And the reason why is because there's a certain point where you have so much athletic ability and so many tools that it becomes almost impossible to pass up on a guy. And if you can have a guy who's multifunctional, multidimensional, like a Bijan Robinson as an offensive weapon, then you are going to be set at the running back room for the next, 8 to 10 years. Because Bijan is a guy who, I mean, unless God forbid something happens to him, he's going to be a guy who's going to stick in the league and produce at a top level for the next decade. And that is worth a top 10 first round pick. Now, in regards to corners and receivers, the receiver value has skyrocketed over the last couple of years because of the way that the league has been trending, with the way that, for example, pass interferences have been called, with, the reinvention of the air raid offense, which is a whole different conversation. And I think Brett Coleman actually has done a really great video on that, explaining kind of how the 2007 Patriots reinvented the air raid offense in regards to slot receivers. But the
Mhm.
position has so skyrocketed, and
Mhm.
with that, corners and especially slot corners have become way more valuable in the league.
Mhm.
Um, just take a look at kind of, a few of the guys who have really made it in the league. I think a Tre'Vius Hodges Tomlinson would be a guy who would stick in the league.
Mhm.
Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones and Jack Jones were all guys coming out of college who had great athletic ability playing up the slot, and they were taken, as day two prospects, by the Patriots because they see the value in
Mhm.
having a quick slot a quick slot corner who can manage a quick slot receiver.
Yeah.
And so really the value of the corner position has risen as a result of the rise in value
Mhm.
of the receiver position as a result of the way that the
Mhm.
league has been trending.
Which that's why you've got guys like Teron Johnson, Kenny Moore, in recent years getting paid the way they do. Cameron Sutton,
Yep,
who
Kyer
played
Elam was
out
a first round corner.
Well, Kyrie Elam's 6'2", like long. He's an outside corner. Like that's what he
yeah,
will eventually be. Yeah. I think you're thinking maybe Trent McDuffie,
that's the
who
name.
the Chiefs drafted, who kind of played a hybrid safety and slot corner role. And then they drafted down the board. They drafted some bigger developmental corners who ended up playing earlier. Watson out of Washington State in the 7th round, and I think it was 4th round. Joshua Williams out of, I believe it was it Jacksonville State or Fayetteville State. I'm blanking on the college, but it was a FCS school, and he was one of my favorite day 3 corner prospects last year. And the Chiefs snapped him. Another guy I wanted to mention, the reason I brought up Cam Sutton, he played outside last year for the Steelers, but most of his career he's been a slot, and he's been brought to Detroit to play slot. Justin Coleman, who's been on the Patriots, Seahawks, and bounced around the league, and just got picked up, I think, by the Panthers slot corner, who's made a lot of money as a pure slot guy. The slot is extremely, I mean, like you said, is skyrocketing in value because of the proliferation of 3 and 4 wide sets in the NFL the last 15 years.
Yeah, I'll just quickly kind of close out so we can move on here.
Yep.
To close out the cornerback wide receiver discussion, in terms of any given draft class, it's definitely going to be unique to the class.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year with corners, the group is so good, it
Yes.
almost devalues the guys at the top,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because so we're looking at Joey Porter, and Joey Porter's a great player, and we have him as cornerback 3 for a reason. We think he's awesome. At the same time, some years it's like, well, what happens if you drafted cornerback 9 instead? Well, that might be a steep drop off depending on the class between
Mm-hmm.
cornerback 3 and cornerback 9, right? This year, cornerbacks 9 and 10 for us, I believe, are Darius Rush and Cam Smith.
Yes.
I don't think there's a huge drop off between Joey Porter Jr. and those two guys, right? So where I do think, like, if you go from the first wide receiver we have ranked, Zay Flowers, to the 9th or 10th wide receiver we have ranked, or the 9th or 10th, like, kind of slot style receiver we have ranked, that is a pretty substantial drop off,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. So there's also kind of dealing with that question of what's the bigger drop, right? Because if, let's say, Cam Smith, or
Mm-hmm.
let's say even Eli Ricks, he's our 8th guy. If Eli Ricks can give you 90% of what Joey Porter's going to give you, but you can get Eli Ricks later, right? Maybe you say, well, I would rather take Eli Ricks in round 2 and the receiver in round 1, because I can't get 90% of that receiver later in the draft, but I can get 90% of this corner later in the draft. So very much a positional value thing. Ultimately, from a New England aspect, the other thing to always keep in mind is the way this front office is drafted. What is the biggest hole on the roster if they had to play a game tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? If they played a game tomorrow, they're probably trotting out Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, Marcus Jones as their top 3 guys, right? And then they have in their safety room Jalen Mills and Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips. That's not terrible. Like, you can function and have a solid secondary with that group. Will you lose to receivers with size more than you'd like? Probably. But how many teams have that much going for them in terms of, like, the size of wide receivers? Like, I can talk about the Bengals, but they have maybe the best room in the league. So
Yeah.
you can survive with the secondary. If you didn't add to the secondary, you don't have to. It's not a death knell for the New England secondary if they didn't add to it in round 1, right? Should they add to it? Hopefully, we'd love to see them add to it. If they took Joey Porter round 1, it's not a bad pick at all. But if they played a game tomorrow and they trotted out the receiver room they have right now, I would feel worse about the receivers they have playing right now than I would feel about the corners they would be trotting out right now. Um,
And
and
here's
similarly, I would feel worse about the tackles that we have playing right now than I'd feel about the corners we have playing right now. So I would put corner as our 3rd need of the big 3. I'd probably rank it at 3rd. I would debate between tackle and wide receiver as the primary need, but I think corner's probably on the 3rd need. Now, if the Patriots took it in round 1, is that a bad thing? Not at all. Still a major need for the
and
team.
actually that has a lot to do with the fact that, like, that there comes a certain point where you hear the term best player available, And at a certain point, like I think the Patriots have kind of shown this as with regards to day two guys specifically. I think that the Chase Winovich pick I think kind of exemplifies that of a guy whose value at the pick at that time trumps your need because to be able to get a guy like let's take Will Anderson for example. If the Patriots are sitting there at 14 and their needs are tackle, corner, and wide receiver, right? If Will Anderson is there, Will Anderson's talent is on the level of a generational edge rushing prospect. And not only that, but also it helps that Will Anderson is a guy who, from a schematic standpoint, very much profiles as a prototypical Patriots edge rusher, or at least guys that they've targeted over the last several years.
Like guys with speed and a lot of bend, and he's got
Yes.
those in spades.
Yes. And if we were sitting there at 14, there comes a certain point where it's like, well, how the hell do you pass up on Will Anderson? Like
Yep.
his size, speed, athleticism, his leadership qualities, just everything you want in an edge rusher is there. And I mean, there comes a certain point where even though you have all these needs, how the hell do you pass up on a talent that good?
Yep.
So it's really
So-
just it's a philosophical thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the way this front office is drafted, it seems to be that they lean to the world of if we played a game tomorrow, what's our worst group?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't think they would think corner's the worst group. They might.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would, but we'll have to see what they do. Who knows?
Good.
Maybe there's a run on receivers in the top 15 that no one sees coming, and suddenly the corners fell hard, and like now you have Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez are both there at Fort. Like who knows, right? The draft can get wild. Right? Maybe for some reason no tackles get picked in the top 14, and suddenly you have literally every one of them available. We'll have to see who's
Draft
there.
is
at
a
14.
major wild card. You never know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
It's a major wild card. We'll have to see who's there at 14, and that
Yep.
would kind of then determine, okay, well, who would be the value play here? If the answer was, well, it's Joey Porter or Zay Flowers at 14, I would personally lean Zay Flowers in that instance. But if it's like, well, it's Joey Porter, or I'm trying to think of a receiver down the board.
I mean, is it Joey Porter or Jordan Addison?
Jordan Addison, yeah.
Or
Is it Joey Porter
JSN?
or JSN or
Yeah,
yeah? Is it? Let's say I like Addison because I think JSN actually will get picked before 14 at this point.
Yeah.
yeah.
If it's Joey Porter or Jordan Addison, I was watching some Jordan Addison last night, some of his pit stuff. Listen, he's a fantastic player. I'm not sure I take him at 14.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's still a great player, but I think Porter at 14 is probably the bit better of the pick versus Addison at 14. Even if I think Addison's awesome, I don't think him versus Porter is quite the same discussion as like Zay Flowers versus Porter. Though I do think Addison is a fantastic player overall. He's got bananas route running. It's like a joy to watch him do that. But depends on the player, right? I mean, if it's like Quentin Johnson or Joey Porter at 14, if they like Joey Porter, 12 times out of 10, right? Don't even think about that kind of question. So we'll see how the board falls is hopefully kind of where things go.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
So Deonte Banks. So Deonte Banks is I think he's about what 6'1", 6'2".
He is 6 foot and 5/8.
Okay. Yeah. So sitting just a little under 6'1".
We could just say basically 6'1" with
Yeah.
really good arm length.
Yeah. And what he does a great job of is so Maryland kind of played like cover 3 quarters throughout the year. They really love to deploy 2 guys on the boundary. And actually one guy that I personally really love is Jacorian Bennett, and we're not going to be talking about him tonight, but he ran like a 4.3 flat at the combine, just stupid speed, really ridiculous in coverage. His ability to cover mesh routes is just absurd. But like he and Deonte Banks, and the reason people are talking about Deonte Banks a little more is because He's got great recovery speed when he does get beat, which is rare. He rarely gets beat. He has a great process and ability to like read the field as a zone corner. Really solid tackling ability, and just overall kind of just the ideal boundary corner. Leverages the sideline really well, physical at the line of scrimmage. Tick any and every box you want to tick. Deonte Banks does a fantastic job at all of it. So we're going to start with this clip here.
Did you mention the 4.36 speed?
Oh, yeah. Also, on top of that, there is the 4.36 speed that he ran at the combine. So he does have, sprinter's speed.
He has the recovery speed.
He has unbelievable recovery speed. So some of these clips are going to be a little bit grainy because a lot of it came from the Michigan game, and honestly, a lot of their games, coincidentally, this year were actually kind of rainy. But yeah, he has the ability to play in bad conditions. Tick that off your box as well. Sticky in coverage, great ball skills versus Michigan, and on this clip, he's going up against Ronnie Bell, who, in his own right, is a fantastic high pointer of the football. Has a great ability to. By the way, also living next to fucking ambulances, but Deonte Banks, he's going up against Ronnie Bell here, and again, Ronnie Bell, great high pointer of the ball, great route runner, is going to be one of those day 3 value guys. Really solid receiver. On this play, tracking him at the bottom here, and just, I mean, it's really hard for corners to be able to play these whip routes effectively because it's so hard to get that kind of change of direction, which is the reason why we have Keely Ringo so low on our board, which is that he does not have that ability to plant that foot in the ground and drive the other way and shift that momentum quickly. He's very much a vertical corner who's going to be covering vertical route concepts. On this clip, again, he's playing this whip route, plants that foot in the ground, is all over this, loses a little bit of upfield leverage, but has great ball skills and an ability to break up this pass. Now, Cade McNamara is by no means like the perfect quarterback, but I mean, he has an ability to throw a really solid deep ball.
Was this McNamara or McCarthy?
I believe this was McNamara.
Was this 2021 or 2022?
2022.
Well, and that's McCarthy. McCarthy started all year.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's JJ McCarthy.
I mean, still, McCarthy's still not the best passer.
Yeah.
He's better than McNamara, though.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's really hard to really plant that foot in the ground, follow this whip route, stay upfield with the receiver, and then break up the pass. And I mean, in a lot of instances, you're going to see that flag thrown because a lot of corners end up just being super grabby in those situations. A great example of that is like Cam Smith. Cam Smith is super, super, super grabby.
It's the big knock on him.
It is the big knock on him. He had a good year last year in 2021, but in 2022 he got a lot more grabby, and lost a lot of his lost a little bit of his technical ability. He's still, for my mind, a second round corner, but I don't think he's like one of the top corners because of how grabby he gets. Now, here's the thing: in college, you are kind of taught that if you get beat, you should grab because it's a 15-yard penalty for defensive pass interference in college, whereas in the NFL, it is a spot foul. So
it's a spot foul beyond 15.
So you'll see a lot of corners in the NFL for those first few weeks be like a little bit grabby if they get beat, and that gets coached out of you at a certain point.
Yeah,
but
which is why which is why it doesn't bother me quite as much as it does some people.
Yeah. But
anyway,
he actually does not get super grabby, which is a great trait to have. And the reason he doesn't get grabby is because he's got elite recovery speed. So on this play here, this is really good coverage on a comeback route versus Marvin Harrison Jr. He, I believe, is going to be at the bottom here. And so, I mean, again, Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the best route runners in college. Comeback route is all over this. And yes, the receiver gets a little bit of separation at the very end of this route here. But, I mean, I can't tell you how many corners I've seen straight up not be able to cover a comeback route. Because it's so hard to go from being in a full bail, which is turning your whole body around and running upfield, to being able to stop on a dime and turn yourself back around quickly and in a tight little circle like that, it's so difficult.
He's got one of the best like speed turns because like in the draft, like or that I've ever seen. Like it's really tight. There's not a whole lot of corners that can do that that aren't awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, this is one of the best clips we've got today in terms of like peak corner play.
Yeah, you want true technical ability. Like this is great technical football, and just you can tell like that's so much time and dedication into learning your position and playing your technique perfectly. I really love that clip. On this one,
I mean, and that's the best wide receiver prospect since Chase, or in my opinion, since Jefferson. Because
yes.
I actually think Harrison's a more full all around prospect than Chase. But like Harrison's almost like a merger of like the best things about Jefferson and Chase. Like he's crazy, and Banks was able to make a really great play there.
On this one, so he
that was some crazy hype right there. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Hey, but you know what? He is being considered by many to be a generational receiver prospect, and for very good reason. I mean, he's got elite route running ability. There's this like viral clip of him catching a ball on the sideline, and like, I mean, it looks like he should tear his ACL with how hard his leg is turning to like keep his foot in bounds while he's catching this ball. But his ability to contort his body and catch the ball in angles where I don't think I've ever seen any receiver be able to.
I can think of one receiver, and it's his dad.
Yeah.
The thing is, his dad was like 4 inches shorter, or something like that, or 5. Like,
it's crazy. Right. It's crazy
but
ability.
Back to Banks.
On this play, he loses initially, but has great recovery speed and ball skills to break up the pass versus Southern Methodist. And one of the guys that's on Southern Methodist, obviously, is Rashee Rice. He's going to be at the top of the screen here. It's a little bit hard to see, but basically, I mean, he loses initially off the snap. You'll see receiver gets a little bit ahead of him, loses about a step here, but his speed is great and has a great ability to just break up this pass here. Obviously, those hips over toes, flip, turn around. I mean, the quickness and his ability to be able to turn around here is insane. And then to get that hand up there and to break up the pass, I mean, it's just really good fundamental football.
And you said that was Rice he was lined up against?
That was Rice he was lined up against.
So Rice is a great straight line, explosive athlete. Like, I think he ran. Did he run in? Was it high 4.5s or the low 4.4s? And he had really good explosive jumps. So like he's in the 4.5 range. So he's no slouch.
Yeah,
that's where you see that 4.36 speed. Also, his jumps were also really good at the combine. Banks is one of the best athletes in this year's really athletic corner class.
Yep. I mean, and here's the thing is that people think like the gap between a 4.5 and a 4.3 is like an offensive lineman versus like, a quick little slot receiver. The difference in a 4.5 and a 4.3 is about a step, maybe 2. So you might be wondering, hey, why did he lose if he's going up against a 4.5 guy and he's a 4.3 guy? A lot of that has to do with how you release off the line. And actually, a lot of these 4.6 receivers that you'll see in the league, the guys that ran in the 4.6s at the combine, the reason they're so coveted is because of their ability to release quickly off the line and be agile in short areas. And just, I mean, the reason why Rice, again, just the reason why Rice is getting passed here is because Rice has a great release off the line right there. I mean, he presses off and is just he's to the races. And Banks is having to do a full turn to get around to be able to catch up with him.
And there's 2 types. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. And Banks has like an elite ability to get back into that play and make a play on the ball. So.
And there are 2 types of guys who like make it in the NFL or make it to the NFL running like in the 4.6s in the 40. It's either guys who are really quick but not necessarily the longest speed. Think like maybe a Jarvis Landry, although he played faster in his 40 time, or like a Keenan Allen, or think guys who don't have very quick get off, but have better long down the field speed, like
Mm-hmm.
a Malik Heath in
Yep.
this year's class would be an example. Or Quintez Cephas would be another example. Y'all may or may not know him. He went to Wisconsin, got drafted by the Lions, played for the Lions. Really slow 40, but he's actually a pretty good deep threat.
Yep. And honestly,
Anyway,
like a lot of these receivers, like the 40 time is a bit deceptive in a couple of ways in terms of a lot of the guys who succeed at the 40 time are going to be guys who are track runners because
yep.
it's very much a track stance. It's something that they're familiar with. It's the reason why Keely Ringo, for example, had a great 40 time, is because he was a
Mm-hmm.
track athlete. But honestly, in a lot of ways, like for example, Jalen Hyatt was expected to run in the 4.2s. And it's not because Jalen Hyatt was overhyped in terms of how fast he is. He looks like a 4.2 burner on tape. There's something about being in a game, in that situation, with the adrenaline pumping, with the game on the line, that gets guys into a second gear that they really can't unlock when they're, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
relaxed at the
Competitive
combine.
speed.
It's competitive speed. Yeah. And so they're able to find this second gear that really doesn't show up at the combine. So you may have a guy who is like Jalen Hyatt, who looks like a 4.2 on tape, rightfully so, and is being talked about as a 4.2 guy, who just doesn't have that top end, who has that top end speed in a game setting. So, um,
Yeah, I almost guarantee that if there was a world where Jalen Hyatt in a game ran a 40-yard go route and he was in the game, if we timed that and we were able to time it exactly, I think he's faster than that 4.4.
yeah,
You
or
know?
like Jake Bobo,
Yeah.
for example, who ran like a 4.8 at his pro day, but like looks like a 4.6 guy on tape.
Yep.
And honestly, that 4.8 doesn't really affect him in a game setting because he's actually like
Well,
really big and good.
It might have been a
Bobo's
4.67. It is unclear
well,
what that number
so
really
it
is.
was some people called it a 4.67. Then there was also like a 4.99. The thing was at USC and UCLA's pro days, it was so wet. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was pouring down. Like LA was getting Beaumont, Texas. I'm using it as an example because I live there. Beaumont, Texas levels of monsoon rain. That like we got this week. And they they were running on grass that was like they were running in water. Like
Yeah.
Yep.
they were in a position where they were going to be slowed down. It was going to slow down their steps. The 40s, I mean, really, you could throw the 40s out. I didn't expect Jake Bobo to be overly fast.
Yeah, he's not
Um,
fast on tape, but like he's got that short area burst and quickness where like I mean, and also he has just huge size to like box out defenders. Like he has so many traits that would translate at the next level that just the 40 time doesn't
yeah,
exemplify.
I would say he kind of he reminds me of old Tennessee Titans receiver Drew Bennett, and he also kind of reminds me of like a bigger Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah. On this play,
Anyway,
so he's going to be covering again Fleming, the wide receiver from Ohio State. And actually, this is going to be a great example of how he's able to stay engaged while the play breaks down. So he goes from covering Fleming on this. I guess I mean, he's motioning and then it goes into a fade route, right? So technically, it's kind of like a wheel, but it's a fade route. And so he's covering it. I mean, he's all over it. Switches to Marvin Harrison, picks off the ball,
yeah,
and I mean, it's great awareness. It's great ability to stay engaged when the play breaks down. You'll see so many guys who after 4 or 5 seconds will just kind of slow down and stop playing. And
mm-hmm.
Banks is fully engaged this entire time and is
They
able to
just
pick
kind of
off the
pick an
ball.
area of grass and they kind of sit there for a bit.
Yep.
Um,
This is particularly
like
true for offensive linemen.
yeah, but this is once again, like I said about that comebacker against Harrison. Like this again, some of the best like clips anybody's got in the class.
Yeah. I mean, just a great ability to stay aware in that situation and to be able
That's
to
work rate. That's work rate and instincts.
Yep. On this
and ball skills all in one clip.
Yeah. On this clip, I believe he's at the bottom here on the boundary. Again, he's going up against Fleming. The Fleming's going to be running a hitch / kind of sit down because he's going to be coming like inside a little bit. Sits right here. Super sticky in coverage. All over it from the minute it starts to the minute it ends. And just great ability to get your hand around the body, not get boxed out, and break up the pass. I mean, that's great fundamental football at every level. If you saw that in high school, that you're a 5-star corner prospect. Like, that's really great ability. And I can't tell you how many corners I've watched in this class. And I watched 40 we watched 40 corners for this year's draft. And I saw probably about 3/4 of these guys not be able to consistently cover this route. And it's a route that you're going to see a lot in the NFL. And you have to be great in your technique. You have to be great in your ability to get out of your T-step, or to get out of your back pedal and hit a T-step and fly onto that hitch route. It's great fundamental football. On this clip, he's all over the route at I believe it's at the bottom here against Charlie Jones. Gets ahead of the route and actually nearly picks off the football. So again, this is kind of showing you, again, elite receiving or elite speed as like a vertical defender. Getting
Jones
ahead of
is
a guy
fast.
Charlie Jones is incredibly fast.
I think he ran in the low 4.4s.
Yep. And you'll see guys like Keely Ringo cover this one perfectly, but not be able to do the rest of the things that we've talked about with Deonte Banks, which is why Banks is a first-round pick. And Ringo is honestly kind of sliding into almost a third-round territory.
I wouldn't draft him personally, I wouldn't draft him in the top 75.
Yeah.
Not with the corners that are also here.
He's going to go before that, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
But I'm really not high on Ringo, and I'm usually pretty high on Georgia secondary, like Georgia corners. I was higher on Stokes than most people, and I wasn't shocked. When the Packers took him in the first round, I was kind of surprised, but not that someone saw that Stokes was that good. I was just like, man, everyone's been talking him down. I was like, oh, someone else sees this the same way I do, because I thought he was worth the pick.
Yep.
And I was
he
right.
very much was. He's been fantastic.
It's like I might have gotten lucky there. Who knows?
This last clip is Deonte Banks against Mitchell Tinsley, who Mitchell Tinsley was actually if you want to go watch the Shadow Sleepers video that the Bootleg Football guys did with Emory Hunt. Emory Hunt, probably, I'm not even saying probably, the best draft analyzer in terms of the amount of talent he watches. He
has a process.
He has
Just 1,000 guys per year for the draft.
Yes, he does 1,000 guys.
Which, if you count the draft picks and UDFAs,
is way more.
Like, I don't even think, like, there's usually like somewhere between 253 and like 260 picks every year.
Yep.
And then maybe, like, would you say, I don't know the exact numbers on the UDFAs.
About 70.
But
about 60, 70.
I was going to say somewhere between like 70 to 100.
Yep.
Well, actually, it's more than that, because like I usually see the UDFA list for training camp. I should say for training camp. Usually teams have like,
we say it doubles. We could say it's in a.
So he's going double, or so, or close to it, the amount of prospects who actually end up in training camp with teams.
Yep, and
that's freaking nuts.
Yeah, and Emory Hunt, so he actually highlighted, so they had given him a list of guys who, shadow sleepers they defined as guys who are at the same position group as somebody else, who is highly rated in the draft, but not being talked about. So in this situation, it would be Parker Washington is overshadowing Mitchell Tinsley. Mitchell Tinsley is a really good receiving prospect. Just good long speed, solid route running ability. Just one of those dudes that's gonna like not be talked about until like day 3, but you're gonna pick him up and you're gonna be like, how the hell did this guy fall to day 3? And it's because he's not getting the hype because he's got a bad quarterback and is sitting behind Parker Washington, who we have as wide receiver 4 on our list.
And as well, Tinsley ran like a 4.640. To me, he's not that slow. Like, he's a football player. He's not a track guy. This guy was never a track guy. This guy's worried about football. He probably hasn't been prioritized by like the draft training community like some of these other guys.
Yep.
Or by agents. So he probably wasn't getting the same kind of level of intensive training or focused training as some other guys. He's a really good like role playing receiver.
On this one, he's going to be running a vertical route, and again, just his ability to be a great cover corner, sticky in coverage, all over it from the first part of the play to the last, and he only has a small percent chance of catching this, and it's because he gets a little bit of a push off, and just he's sticking his hand out there at full extension trying to catch this football. Banks does a great job of just being a fundamentally great vertical defender in this rep, and has the ability to cover other routes. It's just I really love Banks, and it's why I have him as corner 2.
His ability, like it's actually like it really astounds me. His ability, like on this play, to carry that up the sideline, his body angle towards the receiver, like the speed he's able to basically run with his body, like perpendicular to where he's running.
Yeah.
Like, that's just silly to me. Not every corner can do that.
Oh, certainly. The next guy we're going to be talking about is a guy who is very much seen by draft analysts in the media as like one of those mystery guys. And the reason why is because of lack of snaps at Alabama. And
this is my guy.
And also did not do basically anything at the combine. Chose not
other
to do
than measurements. He did nothing.
His name is Eli Ricks. And when I came into it, I thought Eli Ricks would be kind of one of those gimmick guys, right? He's kind of long and lanky and looks a little like you would imagine that a guy that big would be a little bit dopey in coverage, or at least would be a step behind faster corners or faster receivers. He has elite speed, super physical, can cover basically any route. And on top of that, when he was at LSU for those first couple of years, when he was playing with Cordell Flott and
Derek
Stingley and
in 2020.
And also, last year he was playing with Bernard Converse and Mekhi Garner and a few other guys. Jay Ward. He was the best corner at LSU. So we'll start out with the Alabama stuff, but we will get into the LSU stuff. So first of all here, first, you can see he is a massive corner. Again, 6'2", huge dude. And he looks somehow bigger on tape. Like, he does not look like a 6'2" corner. And just so sticky and physical and able to he has super long arms and an ability to, even if it looks like he's getting boxed out of a play, like this one, he's able to get his hand around and break up the pass. It's so difficult to put into words how exciting of a player Eli Ricks is on film.
That receiver.
I wish he would have played more this year, but he was like forced to be behind like these bum receivers, or these bum corners that they had at Alabama.
Tamarian Arnold.
Is
it Tamarian or
I think it's Tamorian.
Arnold. Yeah. Arnold is just rough. He might be the worst starting Alabama corner of the last 15, like since Saban's been there.
The reason he started this game is because Tamorian Arnold was so unbelievably bad in their previous game against Tennessee that they said, fuck it, we have to put Eli Ricks out there. And this was an incredibly good game. And actually, I have a few clips here from LSU or from Alabama versus Mississippi State.
And Mississippi State this was a Mike Leach coached team. Rest in peace. To my favorite character in college football. Their offense is a pass first, second, third, fourth, fifth option, basically. Offense, air raid, super productive with a really good air raid QB in Will Rogers. I mean,
yep.
And
again,
Ricks,
Ricks was killing these receivers. And I mean, look at
Yep.
this. Look at his ability to just get his arm around this receiver and be super physical from the first part of this snap to the last, and press man coverage, and to get your hand in there and break up the pass. It's just
these receivers were trying to be physical and lean in to the kind of run into the corner's path and box them out and be physical, and it did not deter Ricks.
This is another one.
He's very confident. He's extremely confident, and we talked about that with the corners earlier. That mentality, he has that. It's like, I'm gonna win every cut you make. I'm gonna be better than you. He's got that mentality.
On this play, he's playing a fade route versus this receiver, and again, we were talking about this with Banks, and we were talking about this with Porter. There are corners who have an ability to play every angle that the receiver wants to catch the ball from, and there are corners who cannot. There are corners who are so scared about being beaten vertically that they are not concerned about being beaten on the back shoulder. And this is probably the best snap from any, again, when we were talking about Banks, any of the corners clips. How the hell did Eli Ricks get back in this play? Just super long arms, so fantastic at eyeing up the football and eyeing up where the catch point is going to be. How do you defend this? And he does it perfectly. This is incredible technique.
And
and
I'm just waiting for you to get to that. I hope you put that clip of him that I'm thinking of with the triple move.
Did I? I might have. He's at the bottom of the screen here. This is.
It was against Mississippi State, so you might. I think so. You might not have.
Shit.
Dadgummit. It's all good. I should have or sent you a message.
Yeah.
I want to point out that Alabama has, of course, a lot of defensive prospects: DeMarco Hellams, Jordan Battle, Brian Branch, Henry Toto at linebacker, Will Anderson on the edge. Eli Ricks is the best of all of them, whose name is not Will Anderson.
Or Dallas Turner, but.
Well, Dallas Turner ain't in this draft, but you're
He's
right.
not in this draft. Of all the draft eligible guys, if their name is not Will Anderson, Eli Ricks is the best of them.
Yes.
That is how good he is.
On this one, he's got a. So this is great. Again, fundamentals. He's backpedaling, T-step, bam, and he's in there. That T-step is so important for being able to cover these underneaths, for being able to cover basically anything that isn't vertical. Having a great fundamental T-step is going to save you in so many situations where you're being told, don't allow him to get vertical on you, and you're playing a little bit of off coverage, and that receiver plants that foot in the ground and is trying to catch a hitch route. He's backpedal, bam, put that foot in the ground, and he's great at being able to cover everything. It's so good, and the only reason he's not being talked about is because he doesn't have the snaps from this year because Saban benched him. Not because of injury, he just benched him, and we don't know why. So there's a lot of mysteriousness about him.
There's nothing that's gotten out of Alabama about it, because I tried to find something. I didn't hear anything about. I didn't see anything or hear anything about academics. He transferred out of LSU. There was a little bit of drama there, but I still couldn't pinpoint exactly why he left LSU, other than he wasn't super excited about the coaching or not that he wasn't excited about the coaching staff that was coming in, and he thought Alabama would be a better fit.
Yeah.
For 2022.
Um
and Alabama had all those guys they were losing. and LSU transferred some guys in, so it was kind of like he decided to jump out.
And we're going to move on to the LSU clips here, actually. The last 3 clips are all LSU clips. This one, he's going to be playing at the bottom here. And what's so remarkable about this play, he's looking back at the football while he's running a vertical route with the receiver and keeping up with him. And I can't tell you how difficult, I can't even begin to explain to you how difficult that is to accomplish on a consistent basis. Because when you're looking back at the ball, you naturally are slowing yourself down because you want to be able to like kind of slow up in case that ball is coming at you. And in a lot of instances, when receivers are looking back prematurely, that's the time when corners are able to get back into the play because the receiver isn't looking straight forward, basically in a dead sprint, running down the field vertically. And his ability, and it really says a lot about him, that he's able to turn back, looking at the ball while covering a receiver, and I think he actually does get an interception on this play. So again, he's covering, looking back at the football, and then jump ball intercepts the football. That's so difficult to do. I can't put into words how difficult that is for a corner to be able to successfully accomplish that on a regular basis.
And yeah, it's Vandy, but at the same time, that's a heck of a interception to make. Sorry, I'm a Tennessee fan. I have to dog on Vandy.
Again, he's playing the bottom here. He's going to be playing this vertical route, sticky in coverage. Again, a lot of these guys are going to be playing man. And again, that's what I'm talking about.
It's the same clip.
It feels just like look at that.
It's just against Ole Miss, I think.
This is against Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, sorry. I couldn't tell the color.
But I mean, just look at the hips. Quick flip is with the receiver, super long strides, looking back at the ball, and never loses a step on the receiver. Never at any point does the receiver even get half a step on him. And he's able to pick the football off. It's beautiful.
Was this 2020 or 2021?
This is in 2020, so this would have been his
dude.
season.
Yeah, this game was amazing, by the way. And this would have been new Mississippi State transfer at the time from Stanford, KJ Costello, who was coming off a great 2019 in which he outplayed Justin Herbert in a upset of Oregon that previous year. And I thought KJ Costello was a sleeper quarterback prospect. And then 2020 happened. But this game was awesome. He threw for I think an SEC record yards in this game, but also lost his team the game. It was amazing.
And then the last clip I have here, this is against national title winners and undefeated Alabama with Mac Jones and Jalen Waddle and
Devontae Smith, John Mechie, Slade Bolden.
And he's going to be up here at the top going up against John Mechie. And this is a great ability to continue to be in this play while the play is breaking down. Because Mac's rolling out. And look at this play. How the hell are you breaking that up? Again, it's just everything. When you watch his clips, every single play feels like, how the hell is Eli Ricks doing that? And how the hell is Eli Ricks not being talked about as a top corner prospect in this draft?
I would argue it's funny that it's because LSU wasn't as good in 2020. Ricks didn't get the same hype that Derek Stingley did in 2019 for playing basically on this a extremely similar level. And then this year, because he only played a few games, but down the stretch in the college football world, college football people were talking about Ricks down the stretch and how big he was for Bama's defense once he came in to the picture late in the season. It really baffles. I'm still baffled by Saban not having him play earlier, and the only thing I can think of is maybe from a football standpoint is there were things he asked of his corners and wanted out of his corners that Ricks wasn't necessarily coached to do at LSU. and he wanted to make sure he knew the scheme before popping in.
Mm-hmm.
It could have also been a Pete Golding decision, their defensive coordinator, who's not there anymore for reasons. So,
And then the last, so that's the last clip that I have of Eli Ricks, and actually we're going to be moving on to
yeah.
Darius Rush here.
Ricks is my guy. I really think this guy has all the tools and has like the tape of the top 5 corner prospects in this draft that we believe will be first rounders, or at this point kind of almost know will be first rounders. It's just there's less of it, and there's some mystery around him that has him kind of further down the board. But he's a guy that he's a guy who his draft range is murky and large.
It could be anywhere from 2nd round pick to 4th round pick. Like he really could be anywhere in that day 2 area.
Well, there were a lot of people who thought Stokes was a 3rd round corner, and he ended up in the back end of the 1st round. If there's a guy who could pull a Stokes, it might be him.
Yeah. This is Darius Rush on these next few clips, and
this would be the other guy.
Darius Rush is somebody that me and Canada have talked ad nauseum about. I mean, he is so like fantastic as just a sticky man corner who has elite recovery speed. Basically, everything you can say about Deonte Banks, you can say about Darius Rush. The only reason he's not being talked about in this the top echelon of corners is because, again, just like Mitchell Tinsley, in that same sort of breath, he's sitting behind an elite cover corner in Cam Smith.
And Cam Smith had a lot of hype coming into the year, so people were talking about him. His name's around. Rush was arguably better this year.
Rush
and
was
the other thing to keep in mind with Darius Rush, Cam Smith has been a corner for South Carolina. He was recruited as a corner. He came in as a corner. He's played as a corner the entire time. Darius Rush spent his first 2 seasons at South Carolina as a receiver prospect.
Yep.
He converted to corner. So that's one of the big things with him is the fact that he had, you could argue, a better season than Cam Smith did this year. And Darius Rush is in year 2 of the position.
Yeah.
So
if
his
we were to
ceiling is absurdly high.
You could comp him in that way to Tariq Woolen from last year, coming out of UTSA, except this guy did it in the SEC. Because Tariq Woolen was a wide receiver recruit and was coming off his, I think, 2nd year as a corner at UTSA. So, and Rush is almost like he's not. Woolen was a crazy athlete and a little bit longer, but Rush is like very much in that same vein.
Yeah. And honestly, like, if there is a guy, and actually the bootleg football guys were talking about this, if there's a guy who is a Belichick corner in this draft, it is Darius Rush 7 days to Sunday. Like, it's so crazy, like, the South Carolina connection in regards to, like, they had Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore was an unbelievable prospect coming out. Obviously, was a first rounder, and then got traded to the Patriots. And Stephon Gilmore is
signed with the Patriots free agency.
Yeah, signed with the Patriots. Oh, he did get. Yeah, he signed with the Patriots in free agency.
Y'all poached him.
We did, and he turned into a defensive player of the year and helped lead a Patriots defense to what was it, multiple Super Bowls or just the Rams Super Bowl? But he was incredible for us.
Rams.
Yeah. And Rush is very much a guy who, in a few years, could very well be on a Stephon Gilmore level, which is super high praise, but that's just how high I think of him. So we're going to start off here with this rep against Florida. And this is Florida this year. This team was loaded with so many great pieces of talent. Like, their left tackle, Richard Gurage, he had a great year. Osiris Torrance, obviously
could be the first interior lineman off the board.
very well could be the first interior lineman off the board. Obviously, Anthony Richardson being talked about super high. And then the receivers, Ricky Pearsall and Justin Shorter, are both incredibly talented receivers. On this one, he's going to be at the top here on the bound. I guess he's being counted as an outside corner on the boundary. And this tight end is actually going to be coming out running a crosser route. And I mean, he's going to be covering this so perfectly. You can see that elite speed to recover, gets his hand in there, undercuts the route, and actually breaks up the pass. And I can't tell you, again, how many corners I've seen not be able to get back to this route. Like, they have to be on it from the moment that the route starts, the moment the route ends. But he has an ability to be off coverage, allow that quarterback to think that that receiver is open, and then just use that last second of burst to get in there, undercut the route, and break up the pass. Like, that's really great ability. On this one,
And Anthony Richardson does not throw a slow ball.
Oh no, he does not. He actually is probably he throws the fastest ball of any quarterback in the class because he's throwing everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. On this one, this is a screen versus Georgia State, and a lot can be said about Georgia State. Maybe not the best program, but the fundamentals are all there. Of like, you're going to be down blocked here in this screen, and he has a great ability to rip through it and break up this screen. So rip, boom, and he's all over it. And even though he doesn't make the tackle, Bailey actually said this in the chat, that even if you don't make the tackle, you are setting up other guys who are able to make the tackle. So he's making that ability, he's making that lane open for other receivers or for other corners to come in and actually wrap up the ball carrier. And actually, Rush is a great tackler in his own right. It's just he doesn't make the tackle on this specific play. But again, the fundamentals are all there. Rip, get in there, and wrap up the guy. And the only thing he doesn't do is fully wrap up the guy. Here, this is going to be again, another rep. He's in off coverage here versus Ricky Pearsall, who in next year's draft is going to be fantastic. I think a lot of people are going to be talking about him as kind of a great value guy. And or hell, I think even he could go in like the second round if he improves off of this season. He's going to be running across.
It's going to depend heavily on Florida's quarterback play.
Absolutely.
And I'm not super enthused. Well, as a Tennessee fan, I'm very enthused, but
if you are a Florida fan, you might not be.
No.
But Pearsall's going to be running a crosser route here, and he's going to be in off coverage. And look, again, just ability to close space, get hands in there, and nearly picks the ball off. And remember, this guy is a receiver in his own right. So even though he doesn't pick this off, he has great hands. And you'll actually see on another clip, he just straight up just yoink. Well, actually, no, we don't have that clip. Shit. It's in the...
Dadgummit.
It's like a hitch route. And he flies in there, catches the ball, and he's off to the races. He's got great hands, so he's got a great ability to pick off the ball. In a lot of ways, he kind of reminds me of like J.C. Jackson in some instances, just as a boundary corner who's great in man, sticky, and has great hands to pick off the football. But I think he's more valued as a prospect right now because he has all of those intangibles.
Well, a lot of what makes him intriguing, actually, as a corner, is his rapid development and like you said, the wide receiver history is very similar to what made Caleb Farley so sought after. In a couple years ago, of course, he had that back injury, or had to have another back surgery. He kind of had some like disc issues that weren't considered major. Like it was considered like, this isn't really going to be that big of a deal. But then he tore his ACL during his rookie season. He started off the year looking pretty good, but Farley was an elite athlete who played receiver, converted to corner, and was developing quickly into corner and had some pretty good tape at Virginia Tech as a corner. So
yeah. On this play, he's going to be at the top here on the boundary. He's going to be playing against Kentucky. There's a lot made about Kentucky's offense this year, but obviously their quarterback is Will Levis. We are personally very low on Will Levis, but Will Levis has puts great speed on the ball, and he may not be the best processor, but I mean, hell, any quarterback can hit this slant route. But his ability to again, the hips are facing the receiver from the moment that ball is getting snapped, and he never for a moment opens those hips one way or another. He never tells the receiver, "Hey, you are going this way." Like, no, the receiver tells him, and then he follows, which is exactly the way you're taught to play corner, and he does it to great effect. So, on that cut, get in there, get your hand in there, and actually no, this is a pass breakup. But hell, even if that was completed, that's great technique. And again, I don't think I don't think I saw a lot of what Ringo did. Like, Ringo is not able to really consistently cover this. Because Ringo does not have a great ability to change directions quickly. And I'm sorry that this is turning into like a Ringo hate fest, but really it's just like, I think Ringo's kind of overrated in a lot of ways.
The other thing here with Rush that we get to see here is, once again, that closing speed. He does this a lot. It's like a trick that he employs regularly, where he lets a receiver get an extra step or two on a short route, because he knows the quarterback will think the receiver's won the rep, it's over, I can throw it to him. And then Ricks turns on his 4.36 speed, and the receiver's starting to slow down for the ball, and suddenly that open route is extremely covered, right?
Yep.
So you see it, oh, it's like, oh, look, he got a step on the break. Nope, ball's out, it's over. He blanketed him.
Yep.
This is something he does with regularity and allows him to just absolutely own a lot of slants and crossers and all those kinds of things, as he can just like, yeah, I'll let you take that step on the break, and I'm faster than you, so you're not going to get very far.
On this one, this is actually one of my favorite plays that I saw from any of the corners, picking up clips. So he's going to be at the top here, and this is Arkansas's offense, and they had, again, a lot of really great players in this offense: KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders and Matt Landers and Jaden
Hazelwood at
and
the wide receiver spots,
and a really solid offensive line. This is a good offensive unit that really
and that
predicated
crazy
itself.
6'7" tight end.
Yeah. This is an offense that really predicated itself on having a really good passing offense to open up the run game for Rocket Sanders. So it's a good passing offense with a good quarterback, and he's going to be at the top here. Again, he's going to be covering this receiver, and watch his ability to be super athletic. Like, look at that! And he actually catches the football. Now, he falls out of bounds, but oh my goodness, like, I don't think I've seen a corner be able to make a play as athletic as that. Like, get up in the sky, get vertical, and break that up. On this one, he's going to be at the top here. He's actually kind of playing like a safety role, but really it's just super far off coverage. And it's going to be a zone look, but really what he's doing is he's playing whoever is the one on the outside on this part of the field, right? And so this whole time, he's reading the quarterback's eyes, sits. Quarterback's looking at the receiver, boom, get in there and break up that pass. Like, that's such great ability to read the quarterback, be patient, wait for the ball, and then the moment you see that quarterback wind up for that pass, get up in there and break that stuff up. It's just really good stuff. On this one, he's playing at the bottom, press man. Again, Patriots will run a lot of that. Gets up in there, catches that football. He's super sticky as a vertical defender. The only thing that I would really say goes against him in his repertoire is that sometimes he bites a little hard on those double moves. And honestly, a lot of the corners in this class do. But he just wants to be on top of everything, and sometimes those double moves kind of hurt him. That's really the only thing I have against him.
And that's one thing, that part of that's a little bit of an experience, because I mean it's only second year playing the position. But the clip that we didn't have for Ricks that I really wanted was actually an example of a corner in this class who like covers those really well. Mississippi State had one of their receivers throw like a triple move basically at Ricks,
like a Hunter Renfrow type thing.
I mean, it was crazy. He starts on if you can visualize it, he takes a few steps upfield, kind of fakes like he's going on like a quick speed out, flips back inside, then tries to flip upfield like it's an in and up, And Ricks is just all over it the whole way. I'm talking he's like jersey to jersey with him every cut.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and you could see like the receiver as he's cutting up field, like, and still like jersey to jersey, you could see the receiver being frustrated.
Yep.
Like I just threw something Captain Insano levels at you. And like you're in my jersey. What am I supposed to do?
Yep.
Like actually that receiver in particular, you could tell on multiple plays after that against Ricks was just frustrated.
Yeah.
Like from that point on in the game, he was just like Ricks was in his head.
Yeah. And this last clip here.
Sorry to cut back to that, but
no,
it was just,
no worries. I enjoyed the conversation. This last clip is against Tennessee, and I mean, if you knew anything about college football, Tennessee was the most high-flying air raid, no kidding, I'm going to throw the ball down the field offense. And they had some elite deep threats, whether that be Cedric Tillman, who was super underrated because he was behind Jalen Hyatt, or Squirrel White.
Tillman missed half the season with an ankle injury.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Squirrel White.
Yep,
Squirrel White, who was our backup slot to Jalen Hyatt. You had Brew McCoy, former 5-star who transferred from USC to us. Ramel Keaton, who took Tillman's spot as our right outside receiver, because we designate like our outside receivers by side of the field for speed purposes.
Mm-hmm. And all of them are great deep threats in their own right. And I believe here he's actually going up against Brew McCoy. And
McCoy is physical. He's 6'3", 220.
Mm-hmm. And he's going to be at the bottom of the screen here. And, I mean, just watch the ability to just be sticky from... I mean, that receiver gets a half a step on him and is just... He's all over this guy. Like, I mean, I get it. There's a little bit of grabbing. But, a lot of refs are going to be okay with that kind of, hands fighting, being physical during the receiving...
Because McCoy was fighting. McCoy was being pretty physical as well. Like, that was just a physical rep.
Yep.
I wasn't actually too upset with it during the game. My dad was. I'm like, nah.
But, I mean, it's just good defense. And, I mean, he's all over this. You love to see a corner who's able to flip his hips really quickly and just leverage that sideline and just be great from the moment that snap starts to the moment it ends. Like, it's great fundamental football. And really the story of all of these guys and the reason why we showcased these 4 guys in particular is they are all super sticky and press man. And that's what the Patriots are going to be looking for, is a guy who is 6 foot or above, and a guy who's able to play the boundary at an elite level with elite effort. And all of these guys display that. And that's really the reason we wanted to showcase these guys. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to show. And really, if you guys have any more comments, I'd love to be able to hear them. And yeah.
Yeah. So the question.
Very well done.
Question we do have is which of these guys, if you had to pick one, do you think would be best for New England? If you're picking, gun to your head, pick one.
Really,
who's your guy?
Honestly, like, I mean, first of all, any of these corners would be great. But,
right, any of them are like 10 out of 10. I get it.
But if I had to choose, like, if I could have him at any point in the draft, but especially like if I could have him at 14, hell, like I'd be happy. Joey Porter Jr. I think he has so much ability to just be so physical and play that press man style that the Patriots are looking for, and be just has great ability to jump routes and read the quarterback's eyes. He's so smart and so young and has so much room to develop. He would be my ideal Patriots pick if we are looking to go corner at 14. So that would be my pick.
He definitely sounds, based on what you've given us tonight, he sounds like a Bill Belichick corner. Like a corner that you could put in that system and it would work for you.
Yes. And he would solve that issue of like, oh, do we have the height? Like, yes. Like Joey Porter has all the height in the world.
Yep. All these guys fill that need for sure. In terms of second round players, I don't think Banks or Porter Jr. are making it to round two. I
No, no,
expect both of
no.
them. They're going to be both top
Certainly not.
25.
I don't think
Uh,
they'll make it out of the top 20.
yeah, I don't think either of them make it out of the top
And
20.
if they do, if one
It's
of them
shocking.
does, they're not making it past 23 where the Vikings pick.
Right. So in terms of the remaining guys that we looked at, Ricks and Rush, man, I don't think you're going wrong with either of them.
The
I would
thing is, it
probably
probably
lean
Mhm.
Eli Ricks just a
Ooh,
hair.
I figured you would say Rush, because
I'd
I'm a Ricks guy.
I'd probably lean Eli Ricks just a hair, but
Mhm.
at the same time, if they picked Rush over Ricks, I don't think that's bad.
Yes.
I think they're both incredibly good players. They both have the height, the length, the speed that we want, the stickiness and man coverage that we want, the hands that we want. Like these guys, all these guys fit the bill. If the Patriots picked any of them, it's it's a fantastic pick, right? So if they're at 46 and they picked Darius Rush and while Eli Ricks was on the board, I'm not gonna be mad. If they picked Eli Ricks while Darius Rush is on the board, I'm not gonna be mad. They're both awesome. They're both fantastic values at 46. In terms of more likely to be there, I think there is a higher chance that Rush is there and Ricks isn't versus the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is just because Ricks's range is so volatile. I think there's a real chance that like Ricks just like goes in like the 30 to 40
Mm-hmm.
range.
Yep.
Um, I think there's a real chance of that happening because a team is just like, well, listen, he was awesome at LSU and he played 6 games at Bama and was the best guy on the field, so we're gonna take him.
Yeah.
I think there's a real chance that happening. So there is a world where of the four we watched, only Darius Rush is there at 46. Um, and if they, in that case, obviously I would say take him
Yeah.
in that instance. But um, yeah, I don't think they go wrong at any of these guys.
No,
Any
no.
of
There's
these
Mhm.
players, I mean, they could take Julius Brents if he made it to 46. That's a great pick too. So any of these
Mhm.
guys, they make it to 46. The only one I probably wouldn't take as a Patriots guy is Travius Hodges Tomlinson because he
You've got
just
a bunch of that guy.
we got a bunch of that guy.
Yeah.
But like any of the other ones from like Devon Witherspoon down to like Cam Smith, I'd probably say if they took him at any point in the first uh, for those top 4 or 5, they took him at 14. It's fine, and
Yeah.
from 6 through 10, they take him at 46. Any of them are great.
And Brent's, by the way, like Brent's does not get the hype. Honestly, I feel like Brent's doesn't get nearly the hype that he deserves. I think Brent's is on the level of some of these guys just because what what he may not make up in like I think he's not as technically refined as the top 5 guys, but what he makes up with is some of the freakiest athleticism of any corner in the
Mhm.
class. Being
His
like
explosive testing is like hot, like literally the top percentile in
yeah,
Yep,
like the vertical,
everything.
broad jump. I mean, I think in the broad jump, there's only like 2 corners who have jumped further than him on the broad jump, and one of those is Byron Jones, who literally set a world record
yep,
Yep,
at the combine, even though it's
yep,
not recognized because Guinness is
yep.
poo poo.
So one of the two broad jumps better than Julius Brent's broad jump is the world record broad jump.
yep,
Yeah.
Like that's like keep that in now. You want to talk about freak athletic testing? Um, guess who's not far behind? Julius Brents. It's good old Deonte Banks. He had a
Yeah.
slightly better vertical and a very close broad jump.
Yeah, his broad jump I think was 11-4 and Brent's was 11-6.
Yep.
This group of corners and hell, even Trevias Hodges Tomlinson at 5'8" jumped a 40-inch vertical jump.
Yeah, like he can get up there. That's another reason he was able to get a lot of the interceptions that he's gotten is because he has the ability to go up and get the ball.
Yeah, I mean this class of corners
Amazing.
is characterized by elite athletic traits. That is really
Mhm.
what I would say. Even hell, Keely Ringo at 14 is ran like a 4.36 at the combine.
Yeah.
Tyreek Stevenson, as low as he is, and I know that somebody asked about Tyreek Stevenson. Tyreek Stevenson has stupid length. And if he could get
Mhm.
into an NFL system that actually teaches him how to, recover after being beaten,
Mhm.
which he gets beaten a lot, he could be a really good corner in the league.
He like if you're talking about a true project corner, like that's Stevenson, but he's got tools. He's listed, I think, at just a shade over 6 feet, but he's got really long arms.
Yeah.
And he's got, I mean, his athletic testing, I think it was like a 4.46 40, which is really good. Um, sorry. And his broad jump, vertical jump were, you know, good,
Mm-hmm.
not great, but definitely well above average or like above average. I mean, he's got the explosiveness. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just we didn't love his tape.
His hips
Yep.
are a little bit tight as well, I think, as well.
Yeah. He has some similar issues to Keeling Ringo.
Yes. Very much a vertical defender who kind of has a difficulty changing directions. That's really what
Mhm.
characterizes his film. Jalen Jones as well kind of feels like a Patriots kind of guy. I know that he's
Yeah.
the Jones thing. It's very funny, but Jalen Jones. I mean, he played very much in a press man system at Texas A&M, and honestly, just looked fantastic. I really enjoyed his clips in his film. Brian Branch, by the way, let's just get this out of the way. Brian Branch is a slot corner who plays safety. That is what he played at Alabama. That is what he is attempting to characterize himself as, and it is why we have him listed as a corner and not a safety.
Yeah.
Daniel Jeremiah tweeted the other day about slot corners, and he was listing Brian Branch in that group. So, I mean, he is a, and here's the thing. Honestly, he probably does characterize better as a middle of the field corner. It's just like he wants to market himself as a corner because there's money to be made in the corner market.
Yep, more than the safety market for sure.
And honestly, he's
I
not
think,
that great at it.
yeah,
Like-
he's not amazing.
Like this is the thing with Branch. His run defense is really good. Like he'd come in the league and probably be the best run defense slot corner in the league. But to me, if I'm looking at him for how he played in college and what he did, and I look back at last year, like Jalen Petrie and Jaquan Brisker, I think in a lot of ways played very similarly to him, except they actually played safety really well, but also moved out. Like Brisker at times played slot corner. Dax Hill last year played everything from outside corner to free safety to strong safety to slot corner while he was at Michigan. He did it all. And he's a better athlete, and I would argue was better at it than Branch. When Branch has some reps that he'll win, but he gets beat on a lot of slants. I remember against Tennessee, they had him trying to cover like our receivers like on slants, and he had one really bad like he was beat and he interfered, like he just grabbed the receiver.
Yep.
And it's like he has like I think it was like a 4.58, 4.55 40. And he plays like it. Like he's not he's not going to be very good at carrying receivers vertically. For long distances, it's like he will be a solid player for your defense, but there's not a lot of upside. Like that's why I comped him to Jamal Adams.
Yep.
Because that's what he plays like.
In my
one thing I wanted to just bring up. Question from earlier: does Ricks Rush give you 90% what Porter gives you, but in the second round? Quick answer to this. I think the way we see it legitimately, if you said insert corner from our top 10 here turned out to be the best corner in the class, that is a real thing. Like you could do that with any of them. You could go from all the way from Devin Witherspoon down to Cam Smith, and if you said that guy actually turned out to be the best corner in the class, there's a strong chance at any of those guys being
the
the best
margin
corner.
in the top 10 is so unbelievably tight for us. Like
Right. So does Ricks give you 90% of what Joey Porter gives you? When it's all said and done, he might give you 120% of what Joey Porter gives you. I don't know. The margins here are extremely small. So is it better value to take a corner in the second round if you're getting one of these top 10 guys? Probably. But
yeah,
any of those top 10 guys, if you told me 5 years from now, X guy was actually the best corner the whole time, and he was the best in the class. Any of those top 10 guys, I think, have a
Yeah.
real chance of beating
And
that.
the only reason that some guys are being talked about as second round and some guys are being talked about as first round is, first of all, what do draft analysts personally prefer as, like, what is their stylistic choice for what they see as a top corner prospect? But then secondly, it's like, you can't take 10 corners in the first round. Like, that's like 30% of the first round being corners is not a realistic thing that can happen in my eyes, because I don't think there's enough
Yeah.
teams that need corner that badly.
Or and have corner. I mean, unless like a bunch of the teams just had 10 corners in their top like 25 guys. I'm not even going to say like top 30 or top 40. I'm going to say top 25. Like they'd have to be bunched up way at the top of the board.
Yep.
And there'd have to be not a lot of players at other positions. Like, I mean, it would have to be some insane year. Because like not everyone's putting cornerback in their top 2 needs.
Yep.
Right. The other big thing is this year there's a very real chance that this year's corner class sets the record for number of corners selected in the top 100. I believe the previous record is 18 corners in the top 100.
Yep.
I have seen a lot of predictions and projections saying people really think this class is going to hit 20 corners go in the top 100.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
and some of those are guys who are outside of our top 20, because we have Trice, Garrett Williams, and Caillou Blue Kelly outside of our top 20. Who's right below Caillou Blue Kelly in our rankings at 23?
Terrell Smith.
Terrell Smith. I think Terrell Smith could absolutely
the Minnesota corner,
be one of the first 20 corners taken. I really like him.
Mekhi Garner had a fantastic Shrine Bowl week, right?
Yep.
That could propel him as a top 100 pick. Teams really
And
value
he's
those games.
big. He's 6'2", 217.
Yep.
With like and actually he and Brent's are very similarly sized. Brent's is I mean, elite athlete. Garner's a great athlete.
Yep.
Like he's not quite Brent's, but he's
very
explosive.
Good.
So
I could end up seeing Riley Moss fail his way into the top 100.
Oh, I forgot about him because he's solo. Yeah, like Moss might sneak into the third round.
I like the upside of a guy like Cameron Mitchell out of Northwestern as well. I think there's some things to like. It's just there's a lot of things not to like. Which is why we have him so low. Also, I will say, like, if you want a true value pick to like kind of look forward to in that day 3 area, really my 3 guys are going to be Terrell Smith, Nick Jones, and Khalef Halassi. I was really impressed by all of those guys. Nick Jones is the corner out of Ball State. Terrell Smith's obviously the corner we were talking about out of Minnesota. And then Khalef Halassi is the corner out of Western Kentucky. I think, obviously all these guys have things to work on. That's why they are not being talked about as top prospects. But they are guys who are very good value
at
picks.
Something.
Yes.
They're very good at something, right? So we watched Nick Jones, and what we discovered is you pretty much can't ask him to play zone coverage. It's like a bad idea if you want it, right? But if you ask him to play press man, he looks awesome.
So a team like the Patriots might have him higher up their board because they play a lot of press man, and
compared
they
to
have a role for him.
The Chargers, who play a lot of zone, right?
Yep.
So a lot of these guys down the board are really good at something, right, that a team could use.
Yep.
That's why this corner class is so fantastic, right? Because even down the board, it's like you find guys like Cam Mitchell or Nick Jones, right? And it's like, oh, well, he can't play zone, but he'll crush it at press man. Well, we can use that. So all these guys have something that they are fantastic at.
And that's one of the big differences between a lot of the draft boards, like out in the media, compared to team boards. Because we're trying to balance everything. And like, of course, we have things that we like or we maybe think are more valuable, or maybe, and that's why like a lot of the media scouting community, it's I think a little more angled towards traits than actually even in the NFL scout, like the actual scouting circles, or particularly for teams, because teams have their boards based off what they do
Yep.
and what they want to do. So, like a guy like Nehemiah Shelton, you brought up the Chargers, more zone heavy. Shelton is a 6'2", 185 corner who played in mostly zone. He would be a much better fit for the Chargers than he would be for the Patriots.
Yep.
So he probably shouldn't be in the top 20 corners for the Patriots. He probably should for the Chargers.
Yep.
Based on some of the other guys in this class. So,
and I love Carrington Valentine. He's all name team.
He's actually a fairly solid corner as well.
It wouldn't shock me if he's in the third round.
There's a lot of great names in this.
In response to a question from Mac Jones is getting Zay, I am hearing that the trade candidates you may hear for the third overall pick, you probably want to watch the following teams. You want to watch the Colts. You definitely want to watch the Raiders. And a new one I heard today that Captain Canada and Explosion heard first. A source told me, actually watch the Seahawks for a potential trade up to pick number 3 for a quarterback.
Yep. And from what we heard also, Minnesota would be interested in a trade up as well, because they're looking to move off of Kirk Cousins and move on to possibly, from what we heard, Anthony Richardson.
Yep. A lot of competition for that Anthony Richardson pick.
Yeah, whoever trades up to 3. Here's something. By the way, guys, quick update on the mock draft side. So I think I have finalized the scoring system I'm going to implement for the mock draft contest. So I'll probably have an update for you guys about that maybe Monday. So look for that in updates. Quick. So here's a fun one. I think Anthony Richardson is going 3rd overall. I don't know to who at this point. It's not the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I don't think, are making that pick. Anthony Richardson is going 3rd overall to somebody. So there's a fun one for you. Someone is taking him at 3rd overall. Is it the Raiders? Is it the Colts? Is it I don't know, pick a bunch of teams. Are the Falcons making? I don't know. But he's going 3rd overall. He's going to go to somebody there. Who that is yet to be seen, but somebody's picking him at 3.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of candidates that are eye him.
And looking at those teams and the draft compensation is interesting because I've seen similar trade ups in the past, and it's interesting how they vary in value depending on the draft. I've seen teams move up to 3 from 6th overall, and all it cost was throwing 3 second-round picks.
Yep.
And I've seen trades where it was 6-2, and they threw in 2 future firsts along with their first that year. And I think it was a 2nd rounder, and there might have been another pick involved, but I think that's what it was. And I've seen a team go from 15-1 for 2 future firsts along with their first that year, a 2nd rounder, and I think at least one, and I think maybe it was a 4th and a 5th. Now I'm thinking about it.
Yep.
No, the greatest example for me of a team that was willing to sell everything to go get the guy that they want was when the Saints traded their entire draft to go get Ricky Williams.
Yes, Urinating Tree actually made a video about that very recently.
Dude, I love Urinating Tree.
Yeah, so the trades up into that top 5 range I'd call them wild. Those early trades, you just get wild valuations all across the board. I mean, we just saw the Bears and Panthers make a big trade, right? And that was an interesting one to look at. You can look back at the Falcons for Julio Jones went up from 27 to 6, and I think it just cost them 2 1s, a 2 and a 4 to do it.
That was
keep in mind, we don't know who's going 1 and 2 quite yet. In that building in Carolina, sources tell me, Explosion and Canada, that Panthers head coach Frank Reich is actually looking at quarterback Bryce Young, but the organization in Carolina is looking at Stroud.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
It is the other way around. It's been a long day. It's
been
an extremely long day.
And that's been reported
about 70 different players in the last 5 minutes. I get it.
That's been reported, by the way, by a couple of different also NFL media outlets at this point. that, and I think for most people who knew Frank Reich, I think everyone kind of knew Stroud would be his guy, and it's no surprise that he is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like ownership, front office are trying to lean Bryce Young. We will see how that
Which is
works out.
a recent flip by the owner.
Yes, it is.
Because he
What
was
is
touting CJ Stroud like a year and a half ago.
what is fascinating? What is fascinating about this whole thing? We think the Texans. Well, at this point, we think the Texans are pretty much Bryce or busted too in terms of quarterback selections.
It
Um,
is Bryce or bust in Houston. That has been
so,
confirmed to us by the same sources.
so one of the reason, the primary reason here, everyone can look this up. If you'll notice, if you Google who CJ Stroud's agent is, it's David Mulligetta. If you don't know who that is, David Mulligetta,
Watson's agent.
yes, Deshaun Watson's agent. So you might understand then why Houston and CJ Stroud don't have they aren't super into each other. So if Bryce Young went at 1, that throws a lot of mock drafts into kind of wild territory. Because right
Yep.
now, those top 2 being the Stroud first, Bryce Young second is kind of dictating and AR at 3 is kind of dictating the rest of the board. Well, if Bryce Young
Mm-hmm.
goes 1 and the Texans take someone else, suddenly everything is thrown out of whack.
Yep.
So it's going to be Carolina has a very pivotal decision coming up, and whoever they pick at 1 is going to very much alter the direction of the draft. If they pick Stroud, it's going to probably go more akin to what we kind of currently see things at. If they don't pick Stroud and they pick Bryce Young, I think
It'll be interesting for the
it's going
Texans,
to be a very
especially.
different top 10. So
Hell,
um,
if they
I,
somehow take the wild card and go, hey, let's go take Anthony Richardson, and the Texans go Bryce at 2, the price of that third overall pick, in my opinion, goes up a significant chunk because teams see Stroud as a more
Yep.
complete prospect, whereas Richardson is seen more as a project guy. If you can get Stroud at 3 for the Cardinals, you could see that crazy wild valuation at the third overall pick.
Oh shoot, I got this backwards in the post I made earlier too. Oh, God.
so lots of interesting stuff coming up for the draft. For folks who are here, we have 8 in the audience. We have 3 others in the call. We are finalizing currently here in the server what the draft coverage is going to look like for us on draft night. We do have quite a few plans coming your way. Um, I think one of the things I am willing to say kind of for sure, we don't quite know how we're going to set up the channels exactly yet. We're still talking about some possible options with that. One thing we are going to do, I think for sure, especially with round 1, we are going to probably hop back into this stage. Everyone will have access to the full draft guide. Keep that in mind. We're going to use a combo of the draft guide and the existing film we do have. We are going to do for round 1 of the NFL draft our own live in-house draft coverage. This is free for everybody. Of course, it's just on a Discord server, so you don't need cable to go watch ESPN's version, right? Like none of that.
Because
We're going to
I
be
mean, who's going to watch ESPN or NFL Network or
right.
some
So
people are
we're
ABC?
going to have our own in-house live draft coverage where we hit the picks as they come in, talking about what we saw on film with this guy, and the draft guide, and all of that is going to help us kind of get through that. So, yeah, we have some exciting stuff coming up. Um, and look forward to it. I will have something in updates when we kind of have that finalized for everybody, because we're kind of still figuring out what like day 2, day 3 look like. But round 1, I can say we are going to do live in-house coverage, talking about the picks as they come in this stage sort of format where people can ask questions and all those kinds of things. So should be a really fun time this year. I am super excited for what we got.
Yes. It
Mm-hmm.
is going to be very exciting. I don't know what we're going to do with the policy for the picks, especially if I do what I think I'm going to do this year.
And
But
Tom,
regardless, I think it's going to be a fun stream or a fun little get together.
yeah, Tom, I'm still figuring that out. When I have that more set in stone for kind of how we're going to approach that, I will talk to you directly, and we'll kind
Perfect.
of we'll get it set up. I have a couple of ideas bouncing around my head. We'll figure it out.
Oh,
So,
I'm sure.
for next week's show, we're going to be talking about safeties. I think it's the next biggest group to tackle. That it is not a big safety group. It is not a super talented safety group like it was last year, but there are some serious value picks that you can get later in the draft, and we will be talking
Mm-hmm.
about some of those value picks. Some of the guys I'm thinking about covering is Jordan Howden, the safety out of Minnesota. We should also be talking about Jartavius Martin, the safety out of Illinois. And also, I think we should talk about Jay Ward, the safety out of LSU. There's more guys I still need to cover on my board, but it'll be a ton of fun to it'll be a ton of fun to talk about safeties, especially because safeties is really my area of expertise where I know probably the most about. So if you haven't heard enough technical lingo today, you will definitely hear a lot of technical lingo when it comes to safeties come next Saturday. So
what less would we expect?
Yeah.
So safeties a week from today. Explosion. Do you know if we have the other position? Because draft is Thursday.
There's only one more
27th.
after next week.
So we can cover safeties on the 15th. We can cover another position on the 22nd, and the draft hits us before the next following Saturday.
Yep. So the 22nd, we're probably talking about linebackers, and I think that would cover all the positions of perceived need for us. So
that we would cover in round 1, of course.
Yeah, that there's even a small sniff that we would talk about in round 1 would be we talked about wide receivers, we talked about tackles, we talked today about corners, and then safety, linebacker. And you will obviously be able to see the rest of the positions if you were interested in somehow, the Patriots going for a quarterback, or if you want to go for running back. We will have all of that covered in the draft guide that will be coming out 1 week before the draft. That actually should be dropping a day before or the day after our stream. So everybody will have access to that, which would be awesome.
It's going to be a very helpful guide. I took a look at an in-progress copy of it. You guys are going to love it. It is so well organized. Captain Canada did such a good job at organizing it. It's going to read so well for you. So it's good.
I'm really happy about it.
Even if you don't know all the stuff that Explosion and Mike Vrabelstan know, it reads really easy. Like, it explains it in such a way that you understand what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah.
We're very excited about it. We are looking to target the release of it about a week ahead of the draft, so you have some time to get through it.
We're hoping to be done before the 20 or before or by the 22nd.
Yeah.
Is the plan.
I can tell you right now, for the folks who are listening, we have finalized the page total. We know how many pages this thing is going to be.
Oh,
this
boy.
is going to be 367 pages.
Unless we decide to randomly add 3 guys to it to make it.
Unless we decide to randomly add 3 guys, but we are at.
So do your homework, boys and girls.
We're at 367 total pages, and in terms of total prospects, I'm trying to think. It's probably about 359 or 360 total prospects. There are a couple pages that are not prospect pages, but it's a ton of prospects. For a fact, not everyone in the guide will get drafted. So,
and it's possible, just like every year, there's a guy who gets drafted
we don't have.
That we don't have, because it happens every year.
Oh,
and for a period of time, it felt like there was like a 5-year stretch where like 4 times it was the Raiders. I remember like one time there was a guy drafted. It was like the 4th round by the Raiders, and ESPN didn't have tape for him. Mel Kiper said, "I'm gonna be honest, I didn't scout this guy."
Or how about the Patriots? For the Patriots, I think 2020, we had the first pick that they didn't have footage for, and it was the kicker.
Yeah, that was another one.
Or Justin Warbosser, right?
Yeah, him. And it was like they were like, we have the first pick that we don't have footage of.
Yeah, it was. But I was gonna say there's always, because I also wanted to say this about the corners, like about the guys that we were saying. There's a guy every year, typically a corner that goes way higher than people expect. It's a corner or safety usually that has like that who went when. Like a couple years ago, Nashawn Wright out of Oregon State. He was like a 6'3", 6'4" corner that the Cowboys drafted with like I think the 99th or 101st pick. It was like a 3rd round compensatory selection, and people were like, huh? That guy we thought maybe goes round 6 at the best. He goes round 3. He's actually been okay for them. Like, I could see there being sure it would probably be Shelton out of like San Jose State is one of the guys that I've got kind of tabbed there. It's him or maybe Mitchell out of like Northwestern.
Yep.
But
The
anyway,
video for
Sorry to
this,
jinx you there.
the video for this should be out probably at latest Monday or Tuesday. So just look forward to that. If you missed the stream today, the VOD will be up on my channel. And I guess I'll close it out here. Thank you everybody who came in to hang out, to watch some clips and discuss football and discuss what the Patriots are going to do. This is something I really enjoy, and I'm sure the rest of you all really enjoy. And thanks everybody for joining, and I guess we'll see you next week. See you guys.